What if I told you that the biggest obstacle in your English journey might not be grammar, vocabulary, or even confidence? What if the real weight, the silent one, is the doubt coming from the people you love most? Your family doesn't understand your dream. They call English a waste of time. They laugh at your accent. They say, just focus on real life. But what they don't see is that English is your real life, not just a language, a bridge to freedom, to new countries, new careers, new confidence. And when support doesn't come from the outside, something powerful happens. You're forced to build it inside. And that kind of belief, no one can take it away. This isn't just a story, it's your story, told in a way that helps you grow your English and your self-worth at the same time. So get comfortable, because what you're about to hear might just be the story that wakes something up in you. He still remembers the sentence like it was carved into his chest. Why are you wasting time with English? It didn't come from a stranger. It came from someone he wanted to make proud. And somehow, that made it hurt more than failure ever could. But in that moment, something inside him whispered, my dreams are valid, even if no one else could see them yet. He looked around the dinner table, the laughter, the noise, the routines, but inside he felt like a ghost in his own home. Not because they hated him, but because they didn't understand him. He wasn't chasing English for fun, he was chasing it to escape. And yet their silence made him feel invisible. That's when he realized loneliness isn't always loud. He wanted to scream, can't you just support me? But something deeper held him back, because the truth was, part of him wanted their approval more than he wanted success. That contradiction created a war in his chest, a war between comfort and purpose. But one sentence helped him break the loop. My future is my responsibility. That night, the realization came quietly, like a storm after the rain. Support is a luxury, not a requirement. He could keep waiting for someone to say, I believe in you. Or he could become that person for himself. 5 minutes a day. Just 5. He opened YouTube, shadowed a native speaker, repeated, even with shaky voice. That was the start. It took time to see it clearly. Their doubt wasn't personal. It was inherited. Their fear had a face. It looked like poverty, failure, lost years. English to them was just a foreign risk. To him, it was freedom. And sometimes freedom sounds like rebellion when spoken in a house built on survival. But he chose to speak anyway. Here's something most people don't realize. Family doubt often hides in small sentences. Be realistic. Just get a stable job. You're always dreaming. And it sounds like concern, but feels like a cage. He had to unlearn the guilt of wanting more and learn to say in English, I'm allowed to change. If you're watching this, maybe you felt the same. Sitting alone at 1 a.m., watching English videos with headphones in. Not because you're bored, but because it's your quiet rebellion. If that's you, here's something simple you can do tonight. Write down how you really feel. One sentence, one truth, in English. That's not grammar practice. That's soul practice. Most people are waiting for permission, but the people who change their lives, they don't wait. They walk into the unknown carrying only self-belief and YouTube subtitles. And slowly, the world changes shape. One sentence at a time, one choice at a time. But the fire starts here, with the decision to move, even when no one claps. If you want to stay small, here's the formula. Believe every comment that hurts you. Replay it like a broken record in your mind. Let their voices become louder than your own. Feel guilty for dreaming bigger than they ever did. And most importantly, take it personally. If someone says, you'll never speak fluently, treat it like a prophecy. Let it shape your identity. But here's the truth they don't teach you in school. Other people's fear is not your responsibility. Try saying this out loud, not mine. That simple boundary in English is a life skill, not just a language skill. If you want your fire to die slowly, explain your dreams to people who don't even believe in dreaming. You'll sound crazy. They'll say, be realistic. and you'll start to shrink yourself just to fit into their comfort zone. But dreaming out loud is only dangerous to people who've silenced their own hopes. Want to feel stuck for the next 10 years? Keep waiting for permission. Keep asking, is this okay? Before you post that video, apply for that job, or speak in English. Here's a secret. Fluency doesn't ask for approval. It shows up quietly and grows stronger in silence. Try this tonight. Study for 10 minutes without telling anyone. If you want zero growth, keep trusting their fear more than your potential. They say, it's too late. But what they really mean is, I gave up, and I don't want to see you win. Their fear is not your limit. Say it, slowly, like a spell. Their fear is not my limit. That sentence is emotional armor. Here's something deeper. Every time you choose their doubt over your desire, you abandon yourself a little. That's why some people look alive, but feel hollow, because they've stopped following their own voice. But guess what? You can always come back. Start small. Whisper one English sentence to yourself, I'm allowed to grow. You don't need to fight them. You don't need to prove anything. All you need is consistency so loud that silence becomes your proof. 5 minutes of shadowing a native speaker, 10 minutes of writing a private journal in English, not for applause, for clarity, because clarity leads to confidence. And confidence, that's where we're heading next. But before we get there, let me tell you a story about a boy whose family laughed at his English until life flipped the script. Every time he opened his mouth to practice English, they laughed. Not strangers, his own family. His brother mimicked his pronunciation. His uncle called it a waste of time. His mother smiled nervously, afraid he might get hurt. But none of them knew. Those laughs were building something stronger than grammar, resistance. So he trained in silence, late at night under his blanket, using a $3 graded reader from a used bookstore. He whispered each line slowly, tasting every word like medicine. His English wasn't perfect, but his effort was sacred. The world slept. He studied. And in that stillness, fluency began, not in sound, but in soul. He didn't have a private tutor. He didn't go abroad. He had YouTube, subtitles, and determination. Each night he'd read a paragraph, then shadow the narrator's voice until it sounded like his. He wasn't trying to sound native. He was trying to sound alive, because speaking English for him wasn't language. It was identity. Then one day everything changed. A visitor came to the small store where he worked, a recruiter from a foreign company. She asked, "Do you speak English?" His chest tightened, but he said yes, slowly, clearly, confidently. And she smiled, because even though his accent was strong, his message was stronger. A month later, he was hired. Not for perfect grammar, not for a polished resume, but because he showed up with real courage in his voice. And here's the twist. 1 year later, the very family who mocked his English asked him to help them fill out immigration forms. They didn't laugh anymore. They listened. This moment felt surreal, not because he wanted revenge, but because he had outgrown the need for validation. As they watched him explain in fluent English how to complete each form, there was silence, a different silence, the kind that comes when someone realizes they were wrong. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just kept helping. That was his quiet victory. And after they left, he sat alone, opened his phone, and did something powerful. He shadowed 30 seconds of a confident English podcast, not because he had to, but because it had become who he was. That's how transformation happens, quietly, invisibly, until one day the same people who doubted you witness the result. But that transformation, it begins in the mind. So next, let's explore the psychology behind why family doubt hurts so deeply, and how to grow anyway. There's a reason why a stranger's insult doesn't stay with you, but one sentence from your mother can haunt you for years. It's not weakness, it's biology. Your brain is wired to seek safety from those closest to you. So when your family doubts you, it doesn't just hurt, it feels like betrayal. Attachment runs deep. When the people who raised you question your dream, your brain feels like it's in danger. That's why learning English becomes more than just vocabulary. It becomes a rebellion, not against them, but against your own nervous system. That's where emotional boundaries start, with one sentence. I can protect myself emotionally. Families don't always attack. Sometimes they simply freeze us in time. They remember who you used to be, the quiet one, the obedient one, the good boy or shy girl. And every time you try to evolve, their words try to pull you back. Not because they're evil, but because they fear losing the version of you they understand. Here's the internal trap: emotional enmeshment. That's when you carry their anxiety as if it's your responsibility. Their discomfort becomes your guilt. Their fear becomes your hesitation. And slowly you shrink your dreams so they can stay comfortable. But your soul can't breathe in a box. Say it now: their emotions are not my burden. Healing doesn't require confrontation. It requires clarity. Who are you becoming? Write it down in English. One sentence, something like, I'm becoming someone who speaks with clarity and acts with courage. That's more than practice. That's emotional reprogramming. The brain doesn't grow with arguments. It grows with repetition. So every time their voice gets loud in your head, your new voice must be louder. How? By speaking out loud a 20-second confidence statement in English. Even if your voice shakes, your future listens, and it grows stronger. Here's the paradox. Sometimes becoming who you truly are will disappoint the people you love most, but staying the same will disappoint yourself. The cost of evolution is often misunderstanding, but the reward is freedom, emotional freedom, psychological independence, and quiet power. And once you taste that freedom, even for a second, you start walking differently, not with arrogance, but with intention. And that's when a deeper truth begins to form inside you. Maybe your family doesn't need to understand your dream for it to be real. Did you enjoy the content and it made a difference for you? Click on Super Thanks and support our work. Growth is a lonely road sometimes, not because no one loves you, but because no one gets you yet. You walk into the room and suddenly feel like a stranger in your own story, not because you've changed too fast, but because others stopped evolving. And that's when you whisper to yourself, I walk alone when I must. Here's something people rarely say out loud. Outgrowing your family's limitations doesn't mean you're rejecting them. It means you're rejecting the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And that's okay. Write one sentence in English right now. I am not who I was, and that is growth. Most of us are raised to believe that staying the same is love, but true love honors evolution. It doesn't say, stay here with us. It says, go, and don't forget who you are. Even if they can't say it, you must say it to yourself. That's how generational patterns are broken, one brave voice at a time. Learning English isn't just about communication. For many, it's an act of liberation. When your parents lived in fear, silence was survival. But you're choosing fluency as rebellion. You're saying to the future, I will not repeat the past. And that one sentence changes the story for the next generation. The courage to grow comes with grief. You grieve the connection you wish you had. You grieve the support that never came. But then something new is born. A version of you that doesn't need to be validated to keep going. That's not arrogance. That's rebirth. And in that rebirth, something powerful happens. You stop trying to prove. You start trying to be. You stop chasing applause. You start creating impact. And without even knowing it, you become the example. Not to impress them, but to finally recognize yourself in the mirror. So tonight, try this. Speak one sentence your future self would say to you. In English, something like, I'm proud of how far you've come and how far you're still willing to go. These aren't just words. They're new neural pathways being built, one belief at a time, because you don't need them to understand. You need you to understand. And when that truth settles deep in your bones, you'll walk lighter, stronger, freer. And you'll begin to notice something strange. Even without support, you've kept rising. And that's where the next revelation begins. The science behind why unsupportive environments feel so heavy, and how to break free from their weight. Here's the hard truth. When you're surrounded by doubt, your brain doesn't just feel tired, it starts working against you. Criticism releases cortisol, the stress hormone, and cortisol blocks creativity, memory, and motivation. So if you've ever studied English for hours and still felt stuck, it wasn't your fault. It was your environment whispering, "Don't bother." Think about it. Every time someone mocks your accent or doubts your dream, a little alarm goes off in your nervous system. You start bracing for attack instead of reaching for progress. And when the brain is in survival mode, it can't learn. That's why we start with one breath, one moment. Inhale, exhale, then speak a single sentence in English. Slowly, gently. That's healing. But here's the beautiful part. Neuroscience also shows that small victories build neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. So instead of chasing huge goals, try this. Celebrate one English success today. Maybe you understood a line in a movie. Maybe you finished a story. Maybe you just tried. That's micro-motivation, and it's more powerful than external praise. When you feel emotionally fragile, your mind becomes like an open wound. Every insult becomes salt, but you can buffer that pain by creating emotional distance through ritual. One simple practice. Listen to a calm English story each night, not to study, not to improve, just to feel safe inside your learning. That story becomes your shield. Here's something most people don't know. The brain believes the story it hears most often. If you keep hearing "you'll never make it," your neurons start wiring around that belief. But if you repeat, "I define my path," over and over, it becomes a new truth, not magic, just biology. Spoken intention reshapes identity. And here's a simple, powerful routine to reverse unsupportive programming. Step 1. Record your own voice saying something encouraging in English. Step 2. Listen to it every morning, even if it feels strange at first, especially if it feels strange, because the voice you hear the most should be your own. The brain doesn't need perfection. It needs repetition. A shaky sentence spoken 10 times builds more confidence than one perfect sentence you're too scared to say. Fluency isn't built in silence. It's built in the middle of the mess, in the accent, in the stutters, in the courage to keep going. And as this rewiring begins, something else starts to shift. Your confidence becomes less about what others say and more about what you do, even when no one claps. And that's the moment your voice stops shaking, not because the world supported you, but because you finally started supporting yourself. Something quiet happens when a person stops waiting. Their voice gets steadier. Their eyes start focusing on what can be done instead of what's missing. They don't need to announce it, but you can feel it. They're different now, because they've learned the rarest skill in the world, how to rely on themselves. People start noticing too. The same ones who once said, "Why are you wasting time with English?" begin to pause. They sense the change, even if they don't admit it. Your presence is no longer asking for approval. It's holding its ground. And you begin to say one sentence a day with calm, assertive power. "I'm learning. I'm growing." Confidence isn't about being loud. It's about being consistent. When you choose to practice English every day, not perfectly but persistently, you teach your brain something radical. I can trust myself. And that trust becomes energy. The kind that opens doors quietly while others are still waiting for permission to knock. Then something strange begins to happen. Opportunities show up, a job offer, a foreign friend, a podcast invitation, not because you're lucky, but because your energy now says, "I'm ready." And the world doesn't give chances to the best speaker. It gives chances to the one who keeps speaking. Eventually, even the doubters start shifting. They may not say sorry, but they start asking questions. "How did you learn English so well? Can you help me with this form?" And that's when you realize something beautiful. Their opinion didn't change you. You changed their opinion by not depending on it. Your old need for applause becomes unnecessary. You start clapping for yourself. After recording your first video, after understanding a complex sentence, after saying, "I don't know" in English without shame. Because real confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about showing up anyway. Now you're walking into rooms that once scared you. You're speaking in English without translating. You're sending emails without checking every word 10 times. Because now English is no longer a subject. It's a tool, a doorway, a new part of your identity. And your family's doubts, they're still there, but now they echo in the background. Because at the end of the day, the question becomes simple. Whose voice will I follow? The one that says stay small, or the one that says let's try? And when you start choosing your future consistently, day by day, word by word, you become something even doubt can't destroy. And that's where the final realization begins. Why did their doubt hurt so much? Because deep down, you didn't just want to succeed. You wanted to be seen. You wanted someone to say, "I believe in you." But when they couldn't, you started to believe maybe they were right. That's where the pain came from. Not their words, but your silence. But not anymore. Say it now. I understand myself. What changed your path? It wasn't a big moment. It was 100 tiny ones. Speaking English out loud when no one was watching. Watching videos at midnight while everyone else slept. Whispering, "I can do this," even when you didn't feel it. You acted while still feeling alone. And that changed everything. Who are you becoming? Not someone who needs to be saved, not someone waiting for the right moment, but someone who shows up, shaky voice and all. Someone whose dreams are no longer negotiable. Someone who knows fear is natural, but self-betrayal is deadly. Say it clearly. My life is mine. Or what happens next? Now you build. Now you rise. Now you evolve. You speak one sentence in English that you never would have dared last year. You stand in front of the mirror and instead of asking, "Do they believe in me?" you ask, "Do I believe in me?" And the answer begins to shift. You may still feel scared sometimes, that's human. But now you act through the fear instead of because of it. You become the kind of person who grows quietly. And one day people ask you, "How did you change so much?" You smile. You don't explain. Because now your life shows it. Record your nightly affirmation. Just 10 seconds. In your voice, in your rhythm. Something like, "I'm becoming the version of myself I used to dream about." That recording isn't just for practice. It's for identity. And one day you'll listen back and realize you became the person your past self was waiting for. There's no applause, no big announcement, just you, finally moving without waiting to be pushed. And as your story unfolds one sentence at a time, the people who once doubted you will see it. But by then, it won't matter, because you're no longer building for them. You're building for you, and that's where the real story begins. So now I ask you, who are you becoming? Are you still waiting for someone to finally support you, or are you ready to support yourself? In English, in life, in everything. This story wasn't just about family. It was about how easily we give our power away and how deeply we crave permission. But here's the truth. You don't need to be understood to be worthy. You don't need applause to grow. You don't need their validation to begin. English is more than grammar. It's the first voice of your new identity. And every sentence you speak, even if it's imperfect, is a small rebellion against the version of you that stays silent. So I invite you now, speak one sentence today that the old you would have been afraid to say. Say it out loud. Say it slowly. Say it like it matters, because it does. Now tell me in the comments, has your family's doubt ever held you back? What's one sentence you'll say today? For you, not for them. Let's build something powerful together. If this story touched something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to this channel, like the video, leave a comment, and activate the bell so you never miss the next step in your journey. You're not just learning English, you're rebuilding your future, one word at a time.